Meeting will be recorded. Welcome to the Sheffield Sunday As Bill Sees It meeting. This is a main share meeting, and today is great pleasure and with much gratitude that we welcome Tony Z from the Bronx, New York, who's come to share for about 40 minutes, after which we'll open up for general sharing, or if you'd like to ask a question. Thank you, Tony. It's wonderful to have you here, and the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Andy. Andy, you put the time up, or you just let me give you 5-minute warning?
We could put the time up if you'd like.
Appreciate it. Yes, please. My name is Tony. I'm a recovered alcoholic. Oh, man, it's pretty cool to come here and share my experience, strength, and hope. But first things first, I'm going to invite God into my square here real quick. I'm going to say a set-aside prayer. Dear God, please set aside everything I think I know about these 12 steps, these 12 traditions, and these 12 concepts, and you, God, and the fellowship of AA, God, so I could have a new experience with all these things. Help me to see the truth. May you put the words in my mouth and the love in my heart. Amen. Yeah. I always get nervous when they put a recording up, because as you guys know, I'm a retired cop, and the biggest problem is that, I was always in a blackout, so I don't know where I hid all the coffee cans with all the cash, so I'm still looking for them. So, what, I was going through the book, As Bill Sees It, and I got to page 8, and then it was in the grapevine, December 1957, today, December 1st, which is my mom's birthday, who passed about 10 years ago. And it was weird, how we get connected to this power, and then these things happen, these unexplainable things, right? I was going up, I talk about the day that she died. I'm going up to a meeting that night, my home group, and I get this, this feeling, I don't know where this came from, and she calls me, and she was in a nursing home that night, and she goes, Anthony, I'm hungry. Could you bring me some food? And I had like a real important AA meeting, and something said, go. I was with a newcomer, and the newcomer said, you better go too. So we go over, I called somebody. I said, could you open up the meeting for me? It was up in Pathway to Power. Terry knows where it is. Terry definitely knows where that is. And I go to the nursing home that day, and I bought her some food, and she didn't touch the food, and we stood there. We never made the meeting. I was there for about 2 hours, put her to bed, gave her a kiss, and the next morning I get a call. She passed away. And that's only God, right? That's only God, because I'm connected to God, right? They talk about the fellowship of the Spirit. We're all connected together, and it's remarkable how things like that happen all the time. It's unexplainable, but I have to get connected. I have to do the steps, Yeah, so shout out to my mom today on her birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. So I'm a guy who came into AA in 1990. My sobriety date is November 27th, 2007, which 4 days ago I just celebrated 17 years. And that's only through the grace of God, I often say that, my best thinking got me here, but now I know it was only grace, and grace by this loving God, and my best thinking didn't get me here. God got me here. You hear people they talk about, that first step, and there's no God in the first step. I can see God all over that. I can see God all over my whole life, even becoming into AA. All these like signposts he had, and I was just totally asleep, all these warnings to come to AA, and I just, I didn't do the work to do the program. I didn't do the work. So I came in 1990. I still sober to 1998, and that's my old life. And I thank God. God gave me that untreated, middle of the road AA. And when I say middle of the road AA, I say it's just a whole lot of human power. Trying to treat this thing called alcoholism with a human power. That's it. On page 25, it talks about it in our book that there is no middle of the road solution. Right? I tried it for 8 years. You see, human power does work until it doesn't. alcohol was a human power. Alcohol treated my alcoholism till it didn't work. I remember from the age of 13 to 22 that, that's when I crossed into that line of alcoholism. It worked, and then it didn't work. So let's talk about my old life, and I thank God I had that. So I come into I'm going to talk about my AA life because my war stories don't keep me sober. I don't think my war story is going to keep you sober. This ain't a scare straight program. I can't scare no alcoholic. So in 1990, I was introduced to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous to my job, and I did everything they told me to say. I mean to do. I followed all the rules and regulations. I did 270 meetings in 90 days, and guess what? I felt good, right? And guess what? I got the wife, I got the kid, I got the house. Like I said, human power does work until it doesn't work. And what I didn't know was that I was falling into the delusion that I was doing the program of AA. I fell into a group of guys. There was about 8 of us that came up, and together in AA, and we called it the class of 1990. And what we did, we met up at the meetings and we went and we played poker. I remember Friday night. I was more excited to play poker than to go to me. I'm like, oh God, I wish this meeting was over, so we could go play poker afterwards, right? And it was total insanity. People lost checks. It was just insane, And we thought we were doing sober things, We thought we were living the spiritual life, I was in AA. I was lying, cheating, and stealing. I was living a double life in AA, guys. I find out my first that my alcoholism is going to treat itself whether I like it or not. My alcoholism either treats itself to my character defects or to booze, or I get to treat it to God, the steps, and helping others. What's my choice to be? And I don't know this. Like my man Terry says, we live life forward, but we understand it backwards. Hindsight's 20/20. I get to look back. And I get to see how it was untreated in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's by my choice. Because those 12 steps, those 12 traditions, this big book was up there. And I wanted nothing to do with it. I'm going to read something on page 151. I love this. It's the boy whistling in the dark, and that's me. Now and then a serious drinker being dry at the moment says, I don't miss it at all. Feel better. Work better. Having a better time. As an ex-problem drinker, as drinkers, we can smile at such a sally, and that means a story. We know our friend is like a boy whistling in the dark to keep up his spirits. He fools himself inwardly. He would love to have a dozen drinks and get away with them. He will presently try the old game again, for he isn't happy about his sobriety. He cannot picture life without alcohol. Someday he will be unable to imagine life either with alcohol or without it. Then he will know loneliness as few do. He would be at the jumping off place. He will wish for the end. And guys, I had the delusion. I didn't know the difference between sobriety and recovery. Sobriety and recovery are on two different sides of the spectrum. I thought they were the same. They're not even cousins. Right? Sober sucks for a guy like me. Eventually I'm going to run into a wall, and that's exactly what happened. So I'm treating my alcoholism with lying, cheating, and stealing, gambling, womenizing, you name it, I did it. Anger sprees, all kinds of crazy stuff that the untreated alcoholic does. And guess what happens? It says in our third steps, any life ran itself can hardly be a success. I'm always going to be in collision with something or somebody. And I was in collision with my wife. And guess what? She says, I can't live with you no more. I don't know what happened to you. You turned into this animal, She goes, I need to take my daughter and get out of here. She left me. And guess what? The resentment was set. This is at 8 years sober. And guess what? I'm thinking about taking my life. I got a 38 in my mouth ready to blow my brains out. Thank God alcohol shows up again. I have this lovely affair with alcohol. Alcohol treats my alcoholism. Alcohol treats the pain. And guess what? It saved my life. And I picked up alcohol again. And guess what, guys? In the chapter to wives, right? There's a chapter to wives that they have there, and I didn't know about the progression of alcohol. So, oh, the man of 30. I love the guy, the man of 30. He pulls out the slippers. Like we say the chancletas in Spanish, right? He pulls out his chancletas, right? And he starts drinking after 25 years of sobriety, right? Guess what happens? He's dead in 4. My question is, why couldn't he stay sober another 25 years? Because of the progression of alcoholism. And that's exactly what happened to me. I'm coming back to AA. I'm drinking after meetings, something I've never done before. I'm drinking before meetings. I just can't seem to stop drinking. AA's there's a power. There's a power in the fellowship, but it's just not sufficient now. The power's not keeping me sober anymore. And I didn't know that alcoholism is progressive, incurable, and fatal. I didn't know that. Again, hindsight's 2020. I go through this book, and this book gives me an education, right? It gets me armed with the facts, right? Just so I can get to the power. You see, this book has the answers to my problems, but it's still not good enough. The answers to my problems get me to a solution. That's God, right? It's only through true action that I get connected to this power. So anyway, I jump around all the time. So I'll go back, I'm trying to get sober. I'm going to rehab after rehab. So now I'm on this New York City police department, and they see that I'm drinking again, and I'm going to rehab after rehab, and they say, listen, Tony, they give me a 4th emotional pill. You guys know what a 4th emotional pill is? They give me a warning. If I drink again, I give them the power to retire me. And I signed this. I had 15 years on the job, guys, 15 years. And I signed this 4th emotional pill. And not even 10 months later, I started drinking again. And I'll tell you where I did it. So back in 2000, in the Puerto Rican Day Parade, I don't know if you guys remember. I don't know if you even from New York, but here in New York, we had the Puerto Rican Day Parade in 2000, and it was just a whole melee, and they found girls got sexually abused. It was just totally insane, and guys were drunk, and they found cops drunk in the Central Park. It was just totally crazy. So Giuliani didn't want any drinking at the West Indian Day Parade. So I'm from the Bronx, so we had to go out to Brooklyn to write summonses. Our job was to write summonses for people who were drinking. This is 10 months after I signed this 4th emotional appeal, guys. 10 months after. So I get this brilliant idea, and our book talks about this thing called the mental obsession. I'm 10 months sober, right? I get this mental obsession. It's a thought that's so strong it overrides every thought. It's a thought that's so strong it makes you believe a lie, right? I get this thought. I tell my partner, Kev, you want to go back to the bodega, have a few beers? Where the hell did that come from? And Kevin's always down. He was my Irish partner on the job. I loved him. And we go down and we go to the back of the bodega and we start popping them. And guess what happens, right? I don't know. I don't know what happens. I know what happened now when I look back, but I didn't know what happened then. This thing called the allergy kicks in. And I get cement shoes. I stay in the back of the bodega. And I'm popping one after the other. And the next thing you know, it's 8 hours later, and they're looking for us. We're MIA. And finally, a sergeant finds us in the back of the bodega, and he writes us up. He puts us on paper. And I call him a rat and all kinds of crazy stuff. I'm just totally out of my mind. And at this time, they had just came up with an interim order who said that if they found a cop unfit for duty or drunk, they could terminate him on the spot. So I jump in a cab and I go another 2 days at MIA, and they're looking for me. Because my thinking is they can't catch me drunk. They can't prove it. Anyway, I come back. Of course, they suspended me. And the worst part is, it's crazy how we self-destruct, right? And how we take our families with us, right? I'm on channel 2. It's funny, I'm working for CBS today. I'm on channel 2, channel 411, front page of the Daily News. NYPD booze, I remember it was the headline. Giuliani gives out 4,000 summonses to party goers, but they catch 2 of his cops drunk. My family gets to experience that, not only me, right? I used to say I paid the cost to be the boss, right? No. I don't realize the destruction that I do with my family. I don't realize that my little daughter's in the 3rd grade and people get to make fun of her father, right? Is that your dad, the cop who was drinking at the parade, And she's in the 3rd grade. She doesn't know what the hell's going on. My daughter gets to experience alcoholism without picking up a drink. My family gets to experience alcoholism without picking up a drink. So I finally come back in. I give myself up, and guess what? They came back with that frothy emotional appeal, and they said, Tony, remember that? And they retired me, But guess what, guys? Didn't stop drinking, right? Didn't stop drinking. I just want to read something out of the doctor's pen about frothy emotional appeal. For the frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. Oh, do I know? The message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. In nearly all cases, their ideas must be grounded in a power greater than themselves. What's that? What's that? If they are to recreate their life. And we're talking about, I'm still talking about my whole life, but I'm going to talk about how I get to recreate my life. But I need it. I'm like I said, I have so much gratitude for the old life. Because without the brokenness, I don't get to recreate my life. Without the brokenness, I don't go into steps 4 and 5 and I get to see, how self-destructive I am. And now I need to build this life of reconstruction. Excuse me. So they retired me from the job. I'm ripping and roaring to 2007, and I get that, because I'm gonna give 20 minutes of the old life and 20 minutes of hopefully the new life. So now, November 26th of 2007. And you know what, guys? I didn't even know that was Bill W.'s birthday. That was my last drink. I found that out years later, like 3 years after I was sober. God connecting the dots, seconds and inches. I love it. I get into a little brawl on 179 in Broadway. I give locations for the New York people. And I get out of there, and the cops are called. And anyway, make a long story short, I go over to the bridge. The George Washington Bridge is right there, and I go over into Jersey, into Fort Lee. And I stop at they don't have, I was gonna say a bodega. They don't have bodegas in Jersey, only Manhattan. I stop at a gas station and I grab 2 quarts of beer and I'm drinking. And I'm at literally jumping off point. What I just read on 152. Can't live without alcohol. Can't live without it. So I'm coming back over the bridge, and I'm at my wit's end. My family doesn't want to know anything. My friends don't want to know it. But there was this one guy. I get this thought, and that thought wasn't my thought, guys. Bill W. is in the Mayflower Hotel, and he gets a thought. Oh, how about those people? If I pick up this drink here, how about those people who won't be able to hear about AA? Right? That wasn't his thought. Sanity returned, and he thanked God. Right? I'm stone cold drunk, and this thought comes. Once you call that guy Steve, who's always calling you like every 3 months. This man, Steve McCarthy. This man didn't care whether I was sober or not. He did what this book said. He offered me friendship and fellowship. So I called this man up at 4:30 in the morning. I think it was on a Wednesday. He picks up the phone. He has caller ID, and he goes, Tony, 4:30 on a Wednesday. Life must be great. And you know what, guys? That man didn't say, hey, Tony, don't call me when you're drinking. Call me when you're sober. No, he didn't say that. He didn't say, Tony, you'll get me drunk before I get you sober. He didn't say anything like that. You know what he said? Come on over to my house. I'll put a pot of coffee on. Let's talk about it. He knew what the responsibility statement was. He was a card-carrying member of AA. He practiced what was in this book. And thank God for that. Seconds and inches. I want to talk about that, and how God connects the dots. I have been to this is going to be my ninth rehab, and we're calling rehabs from his house. And I called the first rehab, said, Tony, you already been here 3 times. You can't come here. I called the second rehab. They said the same thing. I think his number is 3. After 3, can't show up no more. And then I called my friend Jack from Long Island, and he goes, Tony, you've been here to the one on Long Island twice. Check this out. I just opened the one in Florida. Would you like to go to that one? And I said, yeah, sure. And what he did, he charged me in New York through my insurance. And I go out to Florida. And it's important that, I state that because, I do a 7-day detox. I come out seconds and inches, guys, seconds and inches. And this old timer comes in with the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, the guy, I don't even know how many. He had over 30 years. I know that. But guess what? He was still doing the deal. You often hear people, oh, the guy drank with 52 years, and this guy drank with 30 years, and this guy drank with 24 years. You know what I tell those people? I say, what you talk about? What you talk about the guys who are still doing the deal? The guy with 33 years is still doing the deal. Who's showing up to rehab, Salvation Armies, and detoxes. Why don't we talk about those guys, man? Right? This man, he could have been in his house watching T.J. Hooker or some, I don't know what old men do, but he was in the rehab. And I don't know, there was 55 men there, guys, and I don't know why he picked me. I know now. And he made the approach to me, and he goes, hey, Tony, would you mind hearing my my story? Because by me telling you my story, I get to stay sober today. I said, sure. And I sit down, and I didn't even know what he was doing. He's qualifying me. He goes, hey, Tony, if you're like me, when I came into AA, I knew nothing about a mental obsession, a physical allergy, and a spiritual malady. And he was talking Chinese to me. And he had to explain. He goes, Tony, I have this thing called an allergy, a phenomenon of craving when I put alcohol into my body. I can't tell you the amount I'm going to take, And I always say I'm going to have 2, and I have 200. I identify. And then he says, Tony, I have this mental obsession being away from booze. I can't tell you, I have this thought that overrides every other thought. This thought is so strong, it makes me believe a lie. You have that thought? Bingo. And then he told me about the spiritual malady. And I'm going to go to page 52, and it's exactly what he did. He asked me questions. I scored 100, by the way. He asked me questions. He goes, hey, Tony, were you having trouble with personal relationships, drunk or sober? Yeah. Could you make a living, drunk or sober? And he's talking about the quality of life. Not making money, quality of life. I said, yeah, I was struggling with that too. Can you control your emotional natures? Were you afraid of misery and depression? You get what I'm saying. I answered all 8 questions, 100%. He says, well, you're just like me. You know what, Tony? You suffer from an illness that only a spiritual experience is going to conquer. You see, I didn't know what that man was doing. That man was the man on page 18, a man who shows up with depth and weight, and all he wanted to do was be of service. And because of him being of service, he gets to stay sober. And because of him being of service, I get to see, my first step. We talk about paradoxes in AA, and the first paradox is we have to surrender to win. And then about the other paradox, right? We have to give it away in order to keep it, right? What the reading was talking about. And Abby comes in, and Bill is there, and Bill says, wow, he's fresh skinned and glowing. That's a paradox, right? He gets to see Abby. Abby gives him a story, and Abby didn't know anything. He told him about his story, right? And guess what? Bill gets his first step from Abby. He gets to see, that the paradox that I get to see my story and his. That's what I'm trying to get to. It's remarkable how the AA works. So I come back from that rehab, and I'm sitting down, and I'm going to I tell my soon-to-be sponsor, Steve, that, I want to go to the book Alcoholics Anonymous. And I start going to the book Alcoholics Anonymous. My first step is in place. I conceded to my innermost self to have an abnormal reaction to life, and I have an abnormal reaction to booze. I have an abnormal reaction to life without booze. And that's the deal. You see, the main problem with the Alcoholic Center is in the mind and not the body. And and I needed that spiritual experience, right? So he gives me my second step, and we start going to the weird Gnostics, and he asks me a question: is God everything or is nothing? And I hesitated. I remember hesitating. And he closes the book. And I already joined the group. And I love this, and I'm going to read this page from, I love this Gone Prospector. This was me when I first came into AA. Like a Gone Prospector, belt drawn with the overlast, on page 120 at the bottom if you want to follow with. Like a Gone Prospector, belt drawn in over like last ounce of food, our pick struck gold. Joy I released from a lifetime of frustration knew no bounds. Father feels he has struck something better than gold. For a time he may try to hug the new treasure to himself. He may see at once that he has barely scratched a limitless load, which will pay dividends only if he minds it for the rest of his life and insists on giving an entire product. So I'm in there. I join a group. They give me a key, guys. I get to open up this group 5 days a week. I'm the cookie guy. I'm the coffee guy. You know, that's how it started. Picking away. And he goes, when you go back to that group, I want you to help somebody. And he also said, stop talking about yourself so much when you meet somebody. Ask them about them. I failed at that one. So I'm picking away. And the next day after this conversation, a guy comes in and he was a homeless guy off the street. And guess what? He asks me a question. He goes, can you take me to the soup kitchen? POTS, part of the solution. I said, yeah, I would. And I take him there. And he shows up the next day, and I take him there. And he shows up the next day. He's the first one. Now he's got two guys. And guess what? I'm taking these guys, two guys, to the part of the solution. I don't even know I'm doing like spiritual actions, but guess what happens? I'm having my own lunch, and I get this thing, what you guys call a God shot, right? I get this gratitude inside of me, right? I don't know what the hell it is. I'm freaking out. My sponsor calls and I'm weeping. And I call my sponsor. What's going on? I'm crying, but I feel really, really good. He goes, you tapped into this power, Tony. You know, and he said, my hope, I consider that a white light experience. And he says, your hope is the maintenance and growth of that spiritual experience. You have to maintain and grow. I said, what do you mean? He goes, you got to go on and do the rest of the steps. A couple of things happened that day, guys. I got caught on fire for AA. Right? The obsession to drink was removed. Right? There was no more resistance to the program. Right? I was looking to give this away as quickly as possible. Right? We do a third step. And then the third step, it says, any life brand or self-will can hardly be a success that we have to, we'll always be in collision with something or somebody. And that was the first requirement. The second requirement was that I had to quit playing God, right? And that God was the Father. God is not my partner in AA. God is the employer. I'm the employee. I work for God. That's it, And the third step doesn't mean nothing unless I do steps 4 through 9. It tells me. So that's what I do. I show up with a 4th step and I do a 5th step with my sponsor. Right? And I also I did a 5th step with the poor priest, Father John. I had him there as hostage for 4 hours. But it was pretty cool. That was a spiritual experience in itself. Right? And again, AA is not a religious program. It was highly spiritual, but I was just following the directions of my big book. Right? So, I find out, for me, I did steps 5, 6, 7, and 8. I was out the door with the 8-step list and started making amends at 9. And I think that 5th step prepares me for my 9th step, because it's the first time in that 5th step that I get to say I was wrong. Remember Fonzie in Happy Days? He could never say he was wrong. That's me. Right? I could never say I'm wrong. And it's the first time I get a little bit of humility in my life. Right? And I love that sick man prayer. Man, I had to do it a couple of hundred times for people, right? But it gets me to a place of humility where, I'm no longer blaming them. My troubles are always of my own making. I get to see, where I was wrong, where I was inconsiderate, where I was being envious, where I was jealous, whatever it was, I get to see it. You see, in our book, it says the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot. And here comes that line right afterwards. That keeps me in delusion, even though he doesn't think so, right? That was me. But I needed another man and God to show me that. So 6 to 7, my sponsor was very emphatic. So Tony, are you willing in 6, right? And we did the questions in 6, and then we did the prayer in 7. He goes, "You're done. Don't try to put your greasy little hands in there and try to fix your character defect, because you can't. You want to do 6 and 7, go out and do 8, 9. That's what he told me. Tony, you work the steps, God works on you. Bottom line. So I go through this first 9 steps, guys. I had a transformation like no other. I have a new life. I get reborn. I get to recreate my life, right? Doctor's opinion talks about recreating my life. Mikey L's here. Mikey, what's up, my brother? I love you. And Terry's here. What a lineup you guys have for this month. Oh, my God. You got Terry, and then DC, and then the bricklayer. Oh, my. And of course, Brenda K-Star. I love her. Page 63. When we sincerely took such a position, top of the page, 3rd step promises. This is me after my 9 steps. Right? After I'm knocking on doors and I complete, I remember the day I completed my 9th step for Mensa. I was so happy. I mean, one, because I got it over with, right? And I had so many crazy experiences through that I got to save it for another meeting, because we only got 9 minutes left. We had a new employer. God's my employer. He's not my partner. Being all powerful, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him, capital H, and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves and our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life, as we felt new power flowing, as we enjoyed peace of mind, right? As we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, and the hereafter. We were reborn, a new life, right? Today I can honestly say I have a different reaction to life, right? I was so neurotic before coming into A. Everything bothered me. The color of that guy's hair, I didn't like his jacket. Everything bothered me. And because of the power of God and the power of the steps, I get to change, right? Who knew? God knew, right? They say it's the last analysis, right? It's the last thing I tried and the first thing that worked. So I go through the first 9 steps. Now here we go. This new life that I got, I have to maintain and grow within the spiritual experience. On page 66, it tells me what happens if I don't. Right? It is plain on page 66. I call this the death page. And it could be the death of self, or the death of the spirit, right? Or the physical death, whatever you want to, how you want to take it. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile? Maybe go helping others, right? Those are the hours. I'm thinking about myself. I can't help you because I'm thinking about myself, right? But with the alcoholic whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. We found that is fatal. Ooh. For when we harbor such feelings, we shut ourselves from the sunlight of the spirit. The insanity of alcohol returns, and we drink again. And with us, to drink is to die. I think I said earlier that God separated me from alcohol, right? That was the first surrender. And then I wake up to the fact in my first 9 steps that God was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, right? Now I have to stay connected to this. We get rocketed into the fourth dimension. I need some rocket fuel. The maintenance and growth of that spiritual experience. Steps 10 and 11, I'm disciplined. And I know why they call them disciplines, because I don't want to do them. And they keep me on a purpose. And what's the purpose? Why do I come to AA? So I could pass it on to somebody else. It says it in the reading, right? If I want to maintain and grow. You know, on page, whatever, I think it's 15 year in Bill's story. It says, when all else fails. What does the hell does that mean, all else fails, right? Prayer and meditation. Go into meetings, right? I don't know. Inventory, right? And all that fails. Work with another alcoholic to save the day. They tell me my lifeline on page 20 that my very life depends on as an ex-problem drinker, my very life depends on constant thought of others. So what's going to block me off from constant thought of others? Constant thought of me, right? Steps 10 and 11, help me to see me. And I can't see me. That's why I need people around me. I need my friend Pete. I need, my crew, right? I make a phone call. I do a 10-step. I go to God first, right? I do exactly what the book says, right? Then I call them. I say, listen, this is what's going on. And if I need to make amends, I make it quick. But what's the action behind the 10th step? We turn my thoughts to what? Turn my thoughts to go help somebody else, right? It works every freaking time, right? I want to get some warnings here. I got 4 minutes. I want to read about the warnings. The warnings, the 10-step warnings. It is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action, right? And rest on our laurels, right? I get the busies, right? I got a new relationship. Oh, give me a good relationship. I forget about the newcomer. The newcomer is screwed. Right? We are headed for trouble if we do. But alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Maintain and grow. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all activities. That's another thing. What these 12 steps did was I have a different perception of life. I always wanted to change the world and the people in it, right? Always wanted to do that. I go through these first 9 proposals. I have a transformation. And guess what? The world changed. The world didn't change. My perception of the world changed, right? I'm a little more loving and tolerant towards others. Wow. That's certainly our code, right? So what goggles do I have in the morning? Am I going out there with Tony's goggles, or am I going out there with God's vision, right? Do I do it perfectly? Hell no. But what happens is that my brokenness keeps me in this relationship with my Father. And I thank God for my brokenness. I think on page 133, it says that, that when trouble comes my way, that I take it as an opportunity, right? To demonstrate. We cheerfully take it as an opportunity to demonstrate his omnipotence, right? So that keeps me in a constant relationship with my Father. Then it says, how can I best serve thee? Thy will not be done. Wow. I always thought I had to ask God to keep me sober, or God, do this for me, or God, I'm asking God, what can I do for you? Right? I was a taker all my life. Today, I ask God what I could do for him. That's my job. On page 102, it tells me, I'm going to get there in a little bit. I think I got 2 minutes. Okay. We can exercise our willpower as long as as we wish. It is the proper use of the will. Jesus, I get to conform with AA. So many years I wanted AA to conform to me. And finally, I follow a few requirements. And guess what? I have a spiritual experience. I start thinking differently. I have a new way of living. Right? But it's important to stay connected to this power. Stay connected to this power that separated me from booze back in the first step. So if I'm not carrying this message in the 12th step, if I'm not practicing these principles in all my affairs, You're in AA. If you have a problem with the ninth step, go back to the eighth step. Or you have a problem with the 11th step, go back to the 10th step. No. If I have a problem with any of the steps, I'm right back in lack of power. I'm right back in the first step. I always have a first step problem. Where I'm trying to manage my life, where I'm trying to manage yours. And what's great is that we have an awareness today. We have a program of action that gets me right back on the AA beam. Much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from Him who has all knowledge and power. If we have carefully followed directions, we have begun to sense the flow of His Spirit. To the extent we have become God conscious, we have begun to develop this vital sixth sense. But we must go further, and that means more action. What's a vital sixth sense? So I'm born with 5 senses. God's gift. And then he gives me this vital sixth sense, right, where I get to communicate with Him. And I got to make sure that's clean all the time. Right? Because I can't hear what's telling me if it's clogged up with self, right? That's why steps in the 10 and 11 are very important, to keep that channel open. And I got 10 seconds, and I'm gonna, you hear, what's my job in AA? Well, if you're new here, welcome. This is my job in AA. On page 102, your job now is to be at the place where you may be of maximum helpfulness to others. So never hesitate to go anywhere you can be helpful. You should not hesitate to visit the most sordid spot on earth on such an errand. Keep on the firing line of life with these motives, and God will keep you unharmed. I appreciate you guys for having me. Love you guys.